The first stage is to get the left and right hand sides assembled onto the main body. The right hand side differs as it has a hole drilled halfway up. Make sure that the right hand side that the holes face to the inside. Now you can see the right hand side and of course the left hand side has been assembled to the main printer body. The control panel is fairly easy to fix to the front of the printer, and the power supply fixes to the right hand side. Make sure of course that the power plug is to the right so that you can then screw through the right hand bracket into the power supply. And here you can see that I've already fixed the power supply and the control panel to the printer. Your third step is to attach the Y-end stop. This is the bit that tells the printer when the Y-axis is at the bottom. It's a little bit fiddly because the nuts have a habit of spinning. You need to insert them in the grooved channel. I found the easiest way of doing this, and it took a couple of attempts, to loosen just enough so you could thread in the top and slide down into place. A small screwdriver could be used to finally adjust the nut orientation if your fingers are a little bit on the big side. It's at this point that I'm trying to show you how I slid in the end stop from the top using those rather fiddly nuts. Here it is in place, and I'm sliding it all the way down to the bottom, trying to keep pressure on the nuts so that they don't revolve. And at this point, tighten up the Allen nuts. So in this step, you attach the motor to the rear left hand side for the Y screw. Now the step itself suggested to install the Y screw at this point, but I didn't in the end. I waited until I was ready to mount the X gantry, otherwise it just flaps about a bit and you don't want to accidentally bend or damage it. It's a little bit fiddly to get the screws through. You probably find that before you put the motor in place, to push the screws through first, as I've shown here. And here it is in place. These steps are a little bit tricky. You could possibly do with an extra pair of hands, although I managed it on my own. Here you need to add the extruder assembly, X gantry rollers, the filament feed assembly to the X gantry itself. You need to pay careful orientation to the wheels on the filament feed. Those need to be facing the back, as will the wheels for the gantry rollers on the right hand side. And don't forget to slide on the extruder assembly first though, the bulk of which of the extruder will be to the front. I've got to be honest, these steps took me 1 or 2 attempts because I kept putting the wheels on the wrong orientation, so it'll be worth you pausing the video and rewinding it and playing it again and just having a look at how I ended up with things in the right place. In these 2 steps you'll attach the drive belt, then the belt tensioner for the X gantry. Before you attach to the extruder assembly, thread through and around the motor attached to the left hand side of the X gantry, making sure that the teeth on the belt go to the teeth on the cog of the motor. The belt should run underneath the wheels of the extruder assembly in the channel below them. The ends both attach to the extruder assembly. Now you attach the belt tensioner. Unfortunately, it's got some of those pesky bolts again that have to be orientated correctly. You're now ready to attach the X gantry to the left and right hand sides. It's quite a tight fit, you have to be quite forceful. There's enough friction to stop the assembly slamming down to the bottom. I then screwed the Y screw in the place provided at the rear of the filament assembly. In fact, once I'd started, it almost screwed itself in. If you let go with a little encouragement now and again. You're nearly there now, not much left to do. On these penultimate steps, you're going to bolt in the top gantry and attach the filament spool holder. This is perhaps one of the easiest steps of all. I'll just leave it for you to watch what I do. In this last step, you're going to attach the connectors. Make sure that you actually plug them into the right place. They are actually all labelled. I had a little difficulty with the ribbon cable connecting to the control panel, as there were actually 3 connectors that it could go into. It turned out that I needed to connect it into the far right hand connector as you're facing from the front. If you put it in the wrong one, it simply won't work. Once you've got it correct and turned on, you should see a display similar to this one on your 3D printer. So now you're ready to start printing. Enjoy.